The first warning never arrives with thunder, it arrives as a whisper. It is that subtle unease you feel when standing beside someone who seems perfectly pleasant, perhaps even captivating. Outwardly, everything appears right, the smile is there, the words are smooth, the gestures rehearsed with precision. Yet, within you, something stirs. It is a quiet tightening in the chest, a fleeting thought that passes like a shadow, a faint tremor in the body that resists the presence before you. This is the first warning, and it is the most honest. For before the mask begins to slip, before the deception reveals itself, your soul has already detected what the eyes and ears are slow to name. This unease is the language of the unconscious. It speaks not through reasoned arguments but through sensation, through instinct, through sudden clarity that is easy to dismiss. You may feel that something in the person's gaze lingers too long, or perhaps not long enough. You may notice that their words flatter, but the tone behind them feels hollow. You may catch yourself retreating inward even as you nod and smile outwardly. These are not coincidences. They are the psyche alerting you to danger, drawing your attention to what is hidden behind that performance. But the tragedy is that so often we dismiss these signs. We tell ourselves we are being judgmental, or too sensitive, or unfair. We silence the whisper of the soul with the noise of rationalization. After all, how could something so charming, so seemingly kind, hold harm? So we brush aside the subtle discomfort, convincing ourselves that we must be mistaken. And in doing so, we betray the very intelligence that is trying to protect us. The subtle unease is the soul's way of perceiving what the surface disguises. It notices inconsistencies between words and energy, between gestures and intent. It hears the unsaid and feels the unacknowledged. Long before cruelty becomes visible, the body already senses the chill behind the warmth, the hunger behind the generosity, the control behind the affection. To ignore this knowing is to walk deeper into the very shadow you were warned against. When you honor the first warning, you preserve your strength. You recognize that unease is not weakness but wisdom, not paranoia but perception. It is the signpost at the edge of a path that leads only into confusion and despair. To feel it is to be blessed with clarity, and to act upon it is to shield yourself from unnecessary suffering. Yet it requires courage to trust this whisper, for it often speaks against appearances. The world may praise the very person who unsettles you. Friends may say you are imagining things, that you should give them more time. Your own longing for love or connection may plead with you to stay, to overlook, to endure. But beneath all of these voices, the truth remains steady in your chest. Something is not right. That is all you need to know. That is enough. The first warning does not shout, because shouting is not necessary. Its power lies in its subtlety. The soul does not need proof, for it already knows. It does not deal in evidence, it deals in essence. And essence cannot be hidden for long. You do not need to wait for cruelty to show itself plainly. You do not need to sacrifice your peace on the altar of patience. The subtle unease is enough to walk away. If you learn to listen, you will find that this whisper speaks often, and always in your favor. It is the same whisper that urges you to leave a room that feels suffocating, to end a conversation that drains you, to step away from a presence that dims your light. It is your compass, guiding you toward what nourishes and away from what corrodes. To trust it is to live aligned with your own wholeness. And so, the first warning, though quiet, is the most important. It arrives before the damage is done, before the soul is entangled, before the heart is broken. It is your chance to protect yourself before you need to heal yourself. And if you honor it, you will find that you do not lose anything of value, only what was never meant to remain. The first warning does not shout, because shouting is not necessary. Its power lies in its subtlety. The soul does not need proof, for it already knows. It does not deal in evidence, it deals in essence. And essence cannot be hidden for long. You do not need to wait for cruelty to show itself plainly. You do not need to sacrifice your peace on the altar of patience. The subtle unease is enough to walk away. If you learn to listen, you will find that this whisper speaks often, and always in your favor. It is the same whisper that urges you to leave a room that feels suffocating, to end a conversation that drains you, to step away from a presence that dims your light. It is your compass, guiding you toward what nourishes and away from what corrodes. To trust it is to live aligned with your own wholeness. And so, the first warning, though quiet, is the most important. It arrives before the damage is done, before the soul is entangled, before the heart is broken. It is your chance to protect yourself before you need to heal yourself. And if you honor it, you will find that you do not lose anything of value, only what was never meant to remain. The mask of charm is often the most dangerous disguise, because it does not look like danger at all. It looks like attention, like warmth, like the very thing the heart longs for. When someone wishes to draw you into their shadow, they rarely approach you with hostility or cruelty at the beginning. Instead, they cloak themselves in charm, in flattery, in carefully constructed gestures that make you feel seen, admired, even cherished. But beneath this mask lies a hunger, a need not to give but to take, not to nurture but to consume. And if you are not attentive to the unease that lingers beneath the charm, you risk being pulled into an illusion that was never meant to sustain you. Charm is not the same as love. Love requires depth, consistency, and truth. Charm, on the other hand, is often surface level, smooth, polished, and designed to captivate. It is like a mirror reflecting back what you most want to see. It tells you what you long to hear. It offers gestures that make you feel special, but it does not flow from sincerity. It is performance, crafted to lower your guard, to create a sense of intimacy before trust has truly been earned. And that is where the danger lies. For when your guard is lowered, when your spirit relaxes in the illusion of safety, that is when the deeper hunger begins to emerge. The hunger behind the charm is not always obvious at first. It may show itself subtly, in small tests of control, in quiet manipulations, in the way your boundaries are pushed while cloaked in sweetness. You may notice how their compliments sometimes carry an edge of ownership, or how their attentiveness shifts quickly into expectation. At first, you dismiss it, believing the charm outweighs the discomfort. But over time, you begin to realize that the mask was not there to reveal who they truly are, it was there to hide it. This is why it is so essential to recognize that charm can be a mask. If someone is rushing to win your trust, overwhelming you with gestures that feel larger than life, speaking words that seem too perfectly tailored to your heart, pause. Ask yourself, is this consistency, or is it performance? Love builds slowly and reveals itself in truth, even in imperfection. Charm dazzles quickly and seeks to bind you before you can see what lies beneath. The cost of falling for the mask of charm is heavy, because by the time it slips, you are already invested. You have already given pieces of yourself, already built hopes and dreams around what you thought was genuine. And when the mask finally cracks and the hunger is revealed, it is not only the person you must confront, but also your own disappointment, your own delusionment, your own sense of betrayal. This is why the whisper of unease is so important at the beginning. It spares you from the weight of that inevitable fall. It is not wrong to be drawn to warmth, to kindness, to attentiveness. The soul is meant to be nurtured by such things. But the question you must ask is whether that warmth is real or whether it is manufactured. The difference is in the energy. Genuine love leaves you with peace, with clarity, with a sense of freedom. Manufactured charm leaves you with confusion, with dependency, with a subtle anxiety that you cannot quite name. One nourishes you, the other drains you. One is rooted in truth, the other in hunger. Learning to discern between the two is not about becoming cynical. It is not about distrusting every kind gesture or questioning every compliment. Rather, it is about remaining awake, about remembering that not everything that glitters is gold, and not every smile is born of sincerity. It is about recognizing that love will not need to dazzle you with performance, because its strength lies in its steady presence, not in its theatrics. When you see the mask of charm for what it is, You give yourself the gift of clarity. You step back before the illusion can ensnare you. You remind yourself that your soul deserves truth, not performance depth, not dazzle love, not hunger. And in doing so, you protect the sacredness of your own heart from being consumed by what only pretends to nourish. The cost of ignoring inner signals is far greater than most realize, for it is not paid all at once but slowly, piece by piece, until the self feels fragmented and weakened. When the first unease arises, when the body whispers that something is off, we often silence it. We convince ourselves that it is just fear, that we are overthinking, that perhaps we owe it to the other person to be patient. But in doing so, we step onto a path where the voice of our own soul grows quieter with each step, and the voice of another begins to dominate. This is the beginning of self-abandonment, and its cost is profound. At first, the consequences are subtle. You notice you are explaining away their behavior, justifying words that sting, excusing actions that disturb your peace. You catch yourself bending your boundaries, allowing what once you would not have tolerated, because you believed that to question it would be unkind, or that to walk away would be unfair. Each time you silence yourself, you lose a little of your strength. Each time you betray your own knowing, you give away a fragment of your wholeness. It feels easier in the moment, but in truth it is an investment in future pain. The inner signals are not random. They are born of wisdom older than your conscious mind, the wisdom of experience, of instinct, of intuition that has been shaped by generations of survival. To ignore them is to assume that the mask presented to you knows more than your own soul, that the illusion is more trustworthy than your essence. And the longer you do this, the harder it becomes to hear yourself at all. Confusion sets in. The voice of the other grows louder, convincing you that perhaps you are the problem, perhaps you are too sensitive, perhaps you are imagining things. In this way, what began as a whisper of unease turns into a fog of self-doubt. The cost also shows itself in the erosion of peace. Where once you felt at home in your own spirit, you now feel restless, anxious, on edge. You begin to anticipate their moods, to alter your words and actions to avoid conflict, to make yourself smaller in order to maintain the illusion of harmony. But harmony built on self-erasure is not harmony at all, it is captivity. You may still smile, you may still speak kindly, but within you the soul is unsettled, crying out for freedom, and as time passes, the body itself begins to bear the cost. Stress manifests in sleepless nights, in weariness that does not fade, in aches that no medicine can cure. For when you ignore the signals of the soul, the body takes up the task of reminding you. It refuses to let you rest in a lie. It refuses to let you pretend that what unsettles you is acceptable. The body becomes the vessel of truth when the heart has been silenced. Yet perhaps the greatest cost of all is the slow forgetting of who you are. When you repeatedly betray your own knowing, you begin to lose trust in yourself. You no longer believe in your capacity to discern, to choose, to protect your own spirit. And when self-trust is broken, you become vulnerable to anyone who wears a mask of charm. You become more easily swayed, more easily consumed, because the anchor of your own truth has been abandoned. But the soul, even when ignored, does not give up. It continues to whisper, to send signals, to stir unease, because it longs for you to return. And when you finally choose to listen, when you finally admit that ignoring the signals has led only to pain, you begin the slow, sacred work of reclaiming yourself. You remember that the cost was never worth the illusion, that no connection is worth the betrayal of your own essence. Ignoring inner signals is like walking into a storm without shelter when the first drop of rain had already warned you. The storm does not arrive suddenly, it builds, and each ignored sign is a step deeper into its chaos. But the moment you turn back, the moment you honor the whisper, you reclaim your path, and with it, your peace. The wisdom of leaving immediately is one of the hardest lessons to embrace, because the human heart clings. It clings to hope, to potential, to the image of what it wishes someone could be. It clings to words that sound like promises and moments that sparkle like glimpses of love. And yet, when the unease has spoken, when the mask of charm has begun to tremble, when the body cries out that something is wrong, the wisest action is not to linger and negotiate with the shadow, it is to leave. To walk away at the first undeniable sign is not cowardice, it is self-preservation. It is courage. It is the act of honoring your own life. The difficulty lies in our conditioning. We are taught to be patient, to give the benefit of the doubt, to endure in the name of love or loyalty. We are told that leaving too soon is failure, that to cut ties swiftly is harsh, even cruel. But this belief is what binds so many to situations that devour their light. For the shadow thrives on hesitation. It thrives on the moments you spend questioning yourself, debating whether the unease is valid, convincing yourself that maybe you can fix them, heal them, or love them enough to change. Every second you hesitate is another thread weaving you deeper into their darkness. Leaving immediately is an act of faith in your own soul. It means trusting that your inner signals do not lie, that the first glimpse of danger is all the truth you need. It means stepping away before explanations entangle you, before manipulation twists your perception, before hope seduces you into sacrificing your own peace. The earlier you leave, the less of yourself you lose. The earlier you leave, the clearer your vision remains. There is great power in not needing to see the storm in full before you act. To walk away at the first drop of rain is to preserve your shelter, your warmth, your stability. Many wait until the thunder crashes, until the lightning strikes, until the flood has already swept through their life before they finally accept the truth. By then, the recovery is longer, the wounds deeper, the self more fragmented. Yet the signs were there all along, whispering for them to leave. This is why leaving immediately is not only wisdom but mercy, a mercy toward yourself. It spares you from walking further down a path that can only lead to suffering. It spares you from carrying the weight of regret, from asking yourself later why you ignored the signs you saw so clearly at the beginning. Mercy is not about being soft toward others, it is about being soft toward yourself, about refusing to let your soul be consumed in the name of endurance. Some will call it ruthless to walk away so quickly. Some will accuse you of being unkind or cold. But the truth is that nothing is more unkind than betraying your own knowing. Nothing is more ruthless than abandoning yourself in order to accommodate someone else's hunger. If others misunderstand your decision to leave, let them. Their misunderstanding does not cost you your peace. Remaining where danger lurks does. And let us be clear. Leaving does not always mean running with fear. Sometimes leaving is calm, decisive, steady. It does not require drama or confrontation. It simply requires the strength to say, "This is not for me, and I choose to protect my soul." In that moment, you reclaim all the power that illusion sought to take from you. You show the shadow that it cannot consume what has already chosen the light. To leave immediately is to honor the whispers you once ignored. It is to declare that you will not silence yourself again. It is to trust that your life is worth more than false promises, more than charming illusions, more than hunger of someone who never intended to nurture your spirit. It is the act of choosing your wholeness over their performance, your peace over their chaos, your truth over their deception. Yes, it is difficult. Yes, it feels unnatural at first. But once you walk away, once you step back into alignment with yourself, you will feel the relief wash over you like a cleansing tide. And you will know then, without doubt, that leaving was not only wise but necessary. The difference between shadow work and projection is a truth that must be understood if you are to protect yourself from being ensnared by the darkness of another. Too often, people confuse the two. They hear talk of the shadow, of facing inner wounds, of doing the work of integration, and they use it as a justification to remain bound to someone whose presence is destructive. They tell themselves that the discomfort they feel is simply their own shadow being revealed, that perhaps the other person is a mirror man to teach them that enduring the chaos is part of their spiritual growth. But this confusion is precisely how many remain trapped, mistaking abuse for initiation, mistaking manipulation for growth, mistaking harm for healing. Shadow work is sacred. It is the practice of looking within, of acknowledging the parts of yourself that you have rejected, denied, or hidden. It is an honest confrontation with the aspects of your psyche that feel dark or undesirable. In doing this work, you move toward wholeness, because the shadow is not meant to be destroyed, it is meant to be integrated, embraced, transformed into strength and wisdom. True shadow work leads to greater freedom, a deeper peace, a more authentic sense of self. Projection, however, is different. Projection is when another person refuses to face their own shadow and instead casts it onto you. They burden you with their unresolved wounds. They accuse you of embodying traits that are in fact their own. They make you responsible for the darkness they cannot confront within themselves. When you are caught in the projection of another, you begin to question your own reality. You begin to carry guilt that does not belong to you, shame that was never yours to hold, responsibility for wounds you did not create. This is not shadow work. This is being used as a vessel for someone else's refusal to grow. The key difference lies in the fruit it bears. Shadow work, even when painful, ultimately brings clarity, empowerment, and inner harmony. Projection, by contrast, breeds confusion, self-doubt, and entanglement. If after an encounter you feel smaller, more uncertain, less at home in yourself, then you are likely carrying the weight of another's projection. If instead you feel raw but clearer, wounded yet closer to your own truth, then you are engaged in the sacred process of shadow work. This distinction is critical when it comes to leaving immediately at the first dangerous sign, for many stay longer than they should because they convince themselves that the unease, the charm, the manipulation are simply opportunities for growth, lessons in disguise. They confuse the shadow work they must do within themselves with the projection being forced onto them by the other, and so they stay, believing endurance will bring healing, when in truth endurance only deepens the wound. It is not your responsibility to carry another's shadow for them. Each soul must face its own darkness. You cannot do the work of integration on behalf of another. What you can do is your own work of examining why you were drawn to the mask of charm, why you silenced your signals, why you hesitated to leave. That is your shadow. That is your invitation to grow. But to stay and absorb the projections of someone who refuses to look at themselves is not growth, it is destruction. To walk away when projections are being cast upon you is not avoidance, it is discernment. It is the wisdom of recognizing that your sacred task is to do your own inner work, not to become the battleground for someone else's refusal. It is knowing that growth does not require you to remain in harm's way. It is understanding that you honor your soul not by suffering unnecessarily, but by choosing environments where truth, love, and integrity can flourish. When you recognize projection for what it is, you free yourself from the lie that staying is noble. You see clearly that shadow work is not meant to be endured through the destruction of your own light. You understand that the path of wholeness does not demand your sacrifice to another's hunger. It demands only that you remain true to yourself, that you honor your signals, that you walk away when danger cloaks itself as love. Choosing self-preservation as the path to wholeness is not selfishness, as so many are conditioned to believe. It is the highest form of wisdom. For what use is a fragmented soul that has given itself away in the name of pleasing others? What use is a broken spirit that has been consumed by another's darkness because it feared being called cold, distant, or unloving? The truth is simple. You cannot serve love by betraying yourself, and you cannot nurture another by abandoning your own essence. To preserve yourself is not to turn away from love, but to choose the form of love that is first directed inward, ensuring that what you give outward is pure, whole, and free of chains. The danger signs that appear in another person are not invitations to lose yourself. They are warnings, signals, reminders that your soul deserves protection. And yet, many hesitate, because they think leaving is unkind, that prioritizing themselves is unspiritual, that endurance is somehow noble. But endurance in the face of destruction is not nobly, it is surrender to harm. Preservation is not cowardice, it is courage. It takes far greater strength to walk away from what erodes you than to stay and be consumed. Self-preservation begins with listening to the body and the soul. It is that decision to honor the first unease, to take the mask of charm seriously as a threat, to heed the signals of anxiety or exhaustion rather than dismissing them. It is a refusal to silence yourself when something feels wrong. Preservation means saying, my peace matters, my soul matters. My life is not to be gambled with in the hope that someone else might change. And in choosing self-preservation, you are not turning your back on growth, or you are moving toward it, because wholeness is never found in the abandonment of the self. Wholeness arises when all parts of your instincts, your emotions, your wisdom, your desires are honored, respected, and integrated. To remain in the presence of danger, telling yourself that enduring it will make you stronger, is to confuse suffering with transformation. True transformation comes not from tolerating harm, but from aligning your life with truth. The world often tells us that selflessness is the highest virtue, but even selflessness has its shadow when it becomes self-erasure. To give all of yourself to another, to the point where nothing remains, is not virtue, it is tragedy. What the soul seeks is balance, the ability to give and to receive, to love and to preserve, to extend compassion without compromising your essence. Preservation ensures that balance remains intact. It keeps you whole so that your love, when given, is real and not the desperate outpouring of someone trying to be enough for another's void. Self-preservation also means refusing to carry what is not yours. When projection is laid upon you, when another demands that you bear the burden of their darkness, you can preserve yourself by stepping away, by returning that burden to where it belongs. This is not cruelty, it is justice. It is honoring the sacred law that every soul must confront its own shadow. Your task is not to save another from their inner abyss. Your task is to ensure you do not fall into it with them. The beauty of choosing self-preservation is that it becomes the foundation of a fuller, deeper love. When you are whole, you no longer give from fear or from lack. You do not give to prove your worth or to mend another's emptiness. You give because your cup overflows, because your essence is intact, because your love is not tainted by self-betrayal. To preserve yourself is to ensure that the love you offer is true, steady, and free. And so, the path of wholeness demands that you honor yourself above the illusions of others. It demands that you listen to unease, pierce through charm, walk away when danger is revealed, distinguish shadow from projection, and ultimately preserve your essence at all costs. This is not the easy path, but it is the path that protects your soul from being devoured, the path that allows you to emerge whole rather than fractured. And so, we arrive at the truth that cannot be denied. When you learn to listen to unease, when you see through the mask of charm, when you refuse to ignore the warnings, when you leave without hesitation, when you discern projection from true shadow work, and when you choose self-preservation above all else, you step into wholeness. You no longer live at the mercy of those who thrive in darkness, nor do you confuse destruction with love. Instead, you walk a path where your soul remains intact, where your peace is honored, and where your spirit can flourish without compromise. May you have the courage to trust your inner signals, the strength to walk away when necessary, and the wisdom to preserve your light in a world that often seeks to dim it. May your journey bring you clarity, wholeness, and peace.